Visitors wishing to speak. As far as report of board and special committees, we did do a building walkthrough as we're required to last week and toured all 4 of our buildings. Most of us were in attendance. We got to see all 4 buildings, the condition they're in. Our team is doing an excellent job getting them ready for the start of school tomorrow. I was amazed at how much our staff can do on their own, some of these more in-depth projects versus hiring out. So everything looked great. We got to see some of the new improvements going on at the buildings, which we'll hear more about shortly, and see some of the things we might like to do in the future. So just like to say again, though, our staff has done an excellent job at preparing our buildings. So I don't know if there's any other committees or special reports. One other thing, Gene and I attended what they call a president's reception for presidents, vice presidents, and the school boards and superintendent, and got to hear Commissioner Elia speak. It was a great night hearing her and her thoughts and what she plans to do. So
it was interesting to hear the progress since the last time I heard her speak at the NSBA talk that she'll speak there, I'm sure, again. And the progress was measurable. It was all good news.
If we don't have anything else, I will turn it over to the superintendent's report.
Thanks. We have one item on the agenda for tonight, and I'd like to welcome Young and Wright to give us an update on capital project phase 2 planning. So as we walk through the buildings, as President Steinley mentioned, we had a chance to see the progress of phase 1, and we're on schedule with that. Our track installation company arrived today, so that is good news. They should start putting in the new surface on the track, which will move things along. But we are also, while that's ongoing, planning phase 2 and 3 for submittal to state ed and approval. So welcome.
I'm just moving up so you can see me better.
Thanks.
All right, so I think Tony actually covered the entirety of my first slide. So I'm Jackie Dudkowski from Young and Wright Architectural, the project architect on the job. And it's a good thing because it's a little hard to see anyway, but like you said, phase 1, pretty much wrapping up construction. Phase 2, I'll jump into the details a little more later. And phase 3, we're about midway through the design. For a refresher on the scope that's part of phase 2, it's mostly focused on the high school. We'll be doing the windows, music rooms, some HVAC system components that are a little outdated, the main entry, lockers, interior wood doors, and corridors. At the middle school, we're going to be doing the windows, the parking lot, and tennis courts. And then at both Smallwood and Windermere, we're going to be doing the same thing, some of the domestic and sanitary piping, as well as the tennis courts. For our design process with phase 2, we wanted it to be as collaborative as possible. So we don't want to be that architect that's in our office alone designing a building for you guys. This has been very collaborative with a lot of work from the teachers and from Tony, Laura, and Mark. So if there's anything, I guess, at any point in this presentation that you guys want to jump in and say, feel free to, because you've been, at this point, I feel just as involved as I've been. One of the major features is going to be the music suite renovation. These are actually the original floor plans of the music rooms, and they haven't changed too much since then. They've been described as prison-like and outdated. They've had a lot of issues with storage and a lot of inflexible spaces that sort of don't allow them to function the way contemporary music rooms should. We wanted to do basically a major gut of this area, but the State Historic Preservation Office actually threw a little bit of a wrench into the whole plan whenever they determined that a lot of the design features of the original were character defining of 1950s design. So initially they didn't want us to change anything. So we worked with them for a really long time to be able to gain back some of that design freedom and allow the whole rooms to really be modernized. And all we really had to leave were some of the original finishes in the vestibule, and kind of find unique ways to reference the original floor plan. So they allowed us to do some really cool things in the ceiling. But that opened up really a lot of opportunity for us to give the school a chance to kind of incorporate their branding and some really fun finishes that will kind of give some life to this area. If you look at that little swoosh design there, that is actually inspired by, if you picture a music staff and how the notes kind of bounce up and down, that was sort of the inspiration for the entire design team. The next major portion of the project at the high school is going to be the replacement of the windows. Those are the original, or not the original windows, those are the 1980s replacement windows. And if you look at the picture on the left, those are actually what the original windows look like. So we worked with the district to kind of bring back the original look of the windows, but make sure it's going to be something that functionally worked for them as well. So that middle picture is actually a test window that we have installed at the high school. So everybody really has a chance to see what it looks like, how heavy it's going to be when you open it up, how the locking mechanism works. SHPO had one change for it, which was to, we had originally had a fixed panel in at the top that would conceal some of the drop ceilings that were lowered over time. They didn't really like that one. They really wanted to see the original windows, so we just have to remove a couple drop ceilings to a certain extent. But other than that, there really shouldn't be any surprises with this window. Here at the middle school, these are a picture of these original, or these 1980s windows with this dark fixed panel above. The configuration is going to be mostly the same. There's a lot of drop ceilings in other areas of the building, so we're going to have an obscure painted glass at the top that's going to allow light through. So that's going to be a major difference, and the windows are going to operate totally different too. So there's going to be casement windows that open sideways on each side of each window. So there's going to be a lot of ventilation in here. Back to the high school. This is a photo of how the corridors currently look. The floor does look that brown due to years of wax buildup. So we are going to be restoring the original terrazzo floors, getting some of the original colors back in there, painting the walls, putting in new ceilings, new desk as well at the main entry. So we really feel like we can brighten up the space a lot and add a lot of grandeur kind of to the main corridor. There's going to be some nice feature lighting as opposed to kind of standard 2x2 lighting that we see in most corridors. On the left is an image of that main stairwell when you first come in. It's going to be getting a new railing. The original travertine tile is going to be cleaned up and restored. And the original light fixtures are also going to be receiving new LED lights so that they're a lot brighter, more energy efficient. They don't need to be changed as often. We're also going to be adding a lot of design accents to specific places in the corridors. So in the music room, that image on the upper left, that music wing, we're going to put a nice feature display for their awards and things that they win to kind of bring the Amherst pride and really showcase that. And the same with the student services area, just to kind of create a feature there, a focal point, so that when people are visiting, that area where you tend to get a lot of parents visiting, they kind of know where it is. It has a sense of place.
I'm not sure if you mentioned this or not, you may have, but if not, we are also putting new lockers in as well.
Yes. Oh, that's going to be huge.
To have consistency, because some are recessed, some are red, some are green, Some are built out, so we'll have the same lockers consistently throughout all the levels of all 3 floors.
And then I think the last major portion of the project is really this parking area out here. And it's more than just paving the parking lot. Safety was a huge concern and improving pedestrian and traffic flow. At the top of that, that's the main access drive going down here. There's currently a space for people to pull aside and park. And during games, it's an issue because kids go back and forth between the field and the cars. And it's, very easy to kind of have one step out in front of you while you're driving down that access drive. What we're doing is putting a curb there so that people won't be able to park on that side of the access drive. They'll have to go into the main parking area. And there's also going to be a lot of sidewalks that are added so that everybody knows where they should be stepping and we're safely taking people all the way from the building and then all the way to the street. So you don't have to cross paths where people aren't expecting you to cross a path. The other thing that we are trying to improve is the separation of the bus traffic from the faculty and staff. Currently, it's really easy for people to cut across at weird angles in the parking lot. So we've actually kind of created some areas that jut out a little bit to really stop people from going. It's probably easier if I point it out. To stop people from cutting across from here to here or here to here. These are going to be raised sidewalk areas so that people more or less have to kind of follow the pavement markings. We're also expanding the parking a little bit over here and providing a dedicated area for the smaller buses to drop students off closer to the building. I think that pretty much wraps up my portion of the summary.
If you go back one, the other thing that is notable is the parking lot when we get a heavy rain doesn't drain very well. So we've done some scoping under there and there's some storm sewer issues that will also be repaired. So a majority of that parking lot will be a full replacement, all the way down to the stone. And then there's a portion closer to the building back where the dumpster is where we're able to just mill and top it. But there will actually be repairment of the storm sewer because if you've been here when we've had a heavy rain, you'll notice that it actually builds up quite a bit. So that will also be taken care of.
It's hard to tell, Inspector, is there still sidewalk on this side also?
No.
Yeah, I think the goal was to keep people on really one side without having to cross the access drive.
Yeah, I think originally we had talked about having a sidewalk on this side too.
We have
so
it
the
as
kids-
an alternate.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Yeah, so it is currently in the plans as an alternate, but due to the storm sewer surprise that we had, we had to make some decisions and try to save some money in other places, so it's an alternate. So as the project progresses or phase 2 progresses, if money's available, we'll be able to add that in there. Mr. Rampato, not to put you on the spot, but there's something that's going to be required because of the size of the parking lot under the ground, a basin or something as part of the storm sewer work.
Correct. So an underwater retention system is added, I believe, just in the grass area adjacent to the current playground. So it helps give us additional underwater capacity for the stormwater because of environmental laws that require you to contain it on site at a certain capacity before you release it out to the storm system that the county or town owns.
And that was a additional cost that was unforeseen, so until we realized the extent of the storm sewer damage, basically we were presented with the dilemma where if we were to just, mill and top the parking lot and not address the underground structural problem with the storm sewer, within a matter of 5 to 7 years, the parking lot would look similar to what it does already, because the water underneath would continue to erode it, and it would end up pitting and alligatoring and eroding. So in order for us to do it the right way, it's going to cost a little bit more, but that's why we've had to make some decisions about alternates. I'm not sure if you mentioned this in your presentation, but that area of parking lot adjacent to the tennis courts is also extended. So it looks in that image great, but it's actually, we're adding parking there. And then the tennis courts and the fencing are also being redone, similar to the ones at our high school.
And I think that responds to the person who parked along the drive who says, now I got farther to walk. We put parking right alongside the field there, and they could park there, and it's not a very far walk from there. I mean,
Yeah,
Russ?
the original, there was not, I don't think, parking originally intended for that area. I think what happened over time, as I'm told by our head custodian in the middle school, is that people would park there out of convenience, but it's mostly grass and mud, and there was not really a way to prevent people from parking there. And as a result, when they did the roof repair at the middle school, they had stone left over, so they kind of spread it there to try to eliminate some of the damage that was being done from cars parking on the grass and the dirt and the mud, which then almost invited people to park there. So we're looking to clean that area up and create some distinct curbing for safety. Because anyone who's ever been to one of our softball games out there, that's our varsity softball field, you'll know that the visitor side is along that access road, and often the visiting fans will put their lawn chairs or stand on that access road, and they park there. And as Jackie had mentioned, there's often traffic going back and forth between the cars and the field, and then there's people leaving or coming in as well, so it creates a significant safety hazard. I think this plan does a good job addressing that, and also addressing the pedestrian walkways for our spectators.
How many spaces were you able to add over here?
No, I don't know offhand, but I know that it is more than what there is now. Because there's a concern at certain times of the day, it is kind of difficult to find a parking spot this close to the building. So there will be improvement.
I'd say it's in the neighborhood of 20, which would offset what you lost by the road, yeah.
Oh, it doesn't offset at all. It's only about a third of the spaces on the side.
They're parking along the road.
Yeah.
Yeah, you would notice though, even when we have concerts, big events, there's a lot of times where the parking lot is actually empty, but people are parked all along that access road because they don't think to come all the way down in and enter and use all this parking that goes all the way to, the area behind the middle school there. So once folks get used to actually coming into the parking lot and past that bus loop area, there's a significant amount of parking there that goes unused when we have events because people just don't go far enough to see it. So we may need to get folks used to it, message it, have some people out there waving people in when we have larger events.
Give you one of those yellow vests.
I have one. And a hard hat.
And I assume the special education bus can still fit through there, or the special needs bus.
Yeah, we tested that along with the ones up top too to make sure they could make that turn coming out of the bus loop without having to back up.
And I mean, to make sure that it is all really going to work during the construction process, whenever it's all gravel before it's finished, and then spray paint the lines on there and have a little trial with the buses to make sure that everything actually does fit before the lines are really on there and everything's set.
Great.
So in terms of the schedule, I know you've mentioned this, we have received preliminary, we had the expedited review, which is where you can pay a little extra to have a third-party architect review it so that when it goes to state ed, it's supposed to expedite the review. We made that decision on, as we were going through our planning for two reasons. One, we were held up a little bit by the State Historical Preservation Society with their approval, and you can't submit to state ed without their approval. So we made the decision after we got SHPO's approval, because state ed was running at minimum a 10-month lead time for approval without the expedited review. And when we put these plans together, the lead time was 6 to 8 months back in 2016 when we put the original schedule together. So we went with the expedited review. We got the approval of the third-party reviewer, and then it was submitted to state ed. And state ed had a couple comments, nothing that I would categorize as major or significant, just adjustments to our plans that need to be made. So our goal at this point is to have state ed approval by the end of September, mid-October, and then prepare the bid paperwork for November and be out to bid in December and awarding. That will allow us on our timeline to begin construction as early as January 2019, where we have that February break, and we may have the opportunity to get in and start getting some work done as early as February 2019. The bulk of it, of course, will be done over the 3 summers, 19, 20, and 21, along with phase 3, which will start in 20 and 21. But we're going to be starting as early as, I would say, February 2019. Any questions?
So what's the order of things happening then for phase 2? Or is it all kind of happening at once in terms of
Yeah, that,
summers?
it's not known yet. So Turner Construction will have to sit down once we have the bid awarded and we have our contract, our general contractor and subcontractors, and they'll have to define the scope of work.
Got it.
But I would imagine, when the building's not available or not in use in February, they'll have the ability to go in and work on a number of things. We've talked about, windows maybe when kids aren't here, or second shift, but they still have to go through and put all that together. Good question. Well, thank you very much for the update and all your hard work on these plans. It's nice to see it starting to come to fruition.
I'm really excited for this one. It's just going to be such a big transformation, so.
Thank you. That's
Thank
what
you.
we hope.
Thanks.
Well,
Jerry.
yeah, that was all that we have for the superintendent's report. As you know, tomorrow's the first full day of classes for our students, so we want to be aware that lunches need to be packed and kiddies need to be tucked in and reassured that everything's going to be great tomorrow. So that's all I have.
All right. Then we will need a motion for new business.
I'll make a motion for new business items E, 1A through J, 2A through D, and 3D.
We have a second?
One second.
Next. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor of approving new business items E, 1A through J, 2A through D, and 3D, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Ms. Custodi, I don't believe we have any follow-up action items? Okay. Then we will need a motion to convene to executive session.
Motion to convene an executive session for matter regarding a particular person.
We have a-
Employment of a particular person? Is that a
What it
typo?
says.
I know it does. So the employment of a particular person?
I'm
or-
sorry. What does it say?
It says matters regarding a particular person.
I apologize.
Sounds like we're gonna be gossiping. It's employment of a particular person, correct?
Do you want me to change my motion?
Yes.
Is that correct?
It should be employment of a particular person.
We convene to executive session for matters regarding employment of a particular person.
We have a second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Smith? Okay, all those in favor of convening to executive session, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everybody, for coming.